The next 5 minutes will be about Piet Mondriaan, as you can guess, which is the kind of things that you're used to seeing. But how did he get there? And what did they mean, these paintings? Because he had a whole evolution from quite realistic art to those abstracted works we're so familiar with. And it started first being inspired by an uncle who was a realist landscape artist, and he starts to do his own landscapes. And then when he goes to the Art Academy in Amsterdam, he's a Dutch artist, he starts to introduce atmospheric ideas, which is what you see in the bottom right-hand side. So his work starts to change from quite realistic, traditional landscapes to more atmospheric landscapes. And then in 1905, he sees an exhibition of works by Van Gogh in Amsterdam, and he's hugely inspired by the stylization of Van Gogh's landscapes and the symbolism of the colours and shapes that he includes. And this will inform some of his own work. The bottom right is a work that he made very much inspired by Van Gogh. And from about 1908, he is introduced to other living Dutch artists who come together in a seaside resort every summer, Domburg, and he starts to really experiment with different styles. Remember, this beginning of the 20th century. There's all kinds of things happening in Europe. We've got pointillism and fauvism and all these isms, and Mondriaan is trying them out. Another thing he's hugely inspired by in this period is theosophy, a form of religion or philosophy led by a Russian lady who's sort of combining a lot of religions, world religions. And it's about evolution, about the evolution of the soul and how it can go through these different steps. And it's in this period that he paints these kind of things. And by the way, theosophy was hugely important for a number of artists in this period, including other artists who will eventually go into abstraction, people like Kandinsky. And then in 1911, he moves to Paris. Remember, he's Dutch, he's from the Netherlands. That's a very small country, small art market. And of course, everything has been happening in Paris since the end of the 19th century. So he moves to Paris, and there is introduced to something really new and exciting, Cubism. Picasso and Georges Braque had been experimenting with something that they actually took from Cézanne and just took it a bit further, abstracting things by breaking down compositional elements into facets of colour. And that is what you see on the right-hand side, Mondriaan kind of trying his hand at. Not great though, and so he returns to a theme that was close to his heart, landscape, and he takes a painting of an apple tree that he had done in his parents' house, the top left-hand side, and he takes that apple tree and slowly abstracts it over the next couple of years into the painting that you see in the bottom right-hand side. And you can really see what abstraction means. It is still with an actual object in mind, but slowly but surely taking elements away and simplifying it. Then, of course, World War I happens, and he has to leave Paris. France is under siege. He goes back to the Netherlands, which is neutral during World War I. Here he teams up with a number of architects and artists, especially Theo van Doesburg, to create this group calling themselves The Style, an artistic movement with their own magazine and so on. And what they wanted, and remember this is happening during the First World War, what they wanted is this new utopian look, this new utopian ideal of spiritual harmony and order. And they thought they would get there by using abstraction, as that is such a universal thing. You don't need a certain religion or education or background or upbringing or culture to understand it. So it was all about reducing to the essentials of form and colour. And that's where he gets to what we now so associate with Mondriaan, these type of paintings. Only straight lines, only horizontals and verticals, only rectangular forms, only primary colours or non-colours, black and white and grey, although grey is only short-lived, no spatial illusion, no narrative, no subject. But hard to reproduce on the screen, because actually if you look from close up, it's still very painterly. This is still painted by hand, and you need to appreciate it in person to get the depth of these oil brush strokes. So what they're after is looking for something that unites us. They're looking for peace, for a sense of harmony and balance, for a universal language. Mondrian coins this kind of style neoplasticism, which represents the essential forms and shapes of the universe. Slightly fancy name, of course. Now, you can interpret these things using traditional Western European symbolism, things to do about color and shapes, geometrical shapes. And if you're interested, you can now pause this and study it for a bit longer. It might well have been something that influenced Mondrian as well. Eventually, of course, we get World War II on the horizon, and he leaves again, because this time Holland is invaded. And first he leaves to London, and then eventually, of course, to New York, where he'll die. His legacy is unbelievable. Of course, there's still so many things that are inspired by his look. If you want to hear more about his work, his inspiration, and who he inspired, head to artistoflondon.com. Thank you so much.